Thank you. I guess the first time it really hit me how important building corporate growth was for people when I had a meeting a number of years ago with the CEO of a company that produced one product, postage machines. Now you can say that postage machines aren't particularly sexy, but boy, this was one sweet business. This company was making 40% net profits, had about a third of the market. There are three companies, they each had about a third of the market, maybe a little bit of collusion going on there. If there was new technology, they all had to share it, all had to be passed by the government, et cetera, because basically this machine is printing money. The problem was with the CEO is that his people were unhappy, and he was systematically having his best people leaving. Now, you sort of look at this and you say, wait a minute, we should all be so lucky, okay, to have to be in a business like this. Lots of money, people getting big bonuses, et cetera, systematically. It was very, very stable. But in fact, there was no growth. Now, his question was really, what it really came down to was, why are my people unhappy, and how can I make them happy? Now, you got to ask yourself then the question, well, what's happiness? Well, you have a tendency to look at and think about happiness as being sort of a continuum. You got something on the plus side and you're happy, and you have more down the negative side and you're unhappy. Well, cognitive neuroscience has now taught us that that's wrong. In fact, the two mechanisms of happiness and unhappiness are completely separate mechanisms. This is just one example of some scans of brain responses to pictures, et cetera, and there are lots of different studies that have demonstrated that. For instance, here you see that if somebody is happy, well, basically what happens is, you have activity on the left side of your brain. If you're unhappy, well, you have activity on the right side of your brain. So what's going on here? And to make it even more complicated, it's asymmetrical. In other words, the way that we react to losses and gains don't happen in the same way. For instance, if you look on the right-hand side there, if you get good feelings that are coming from some sort of gains that are going to make you happy, well, it's sort of like if you have, one piece of chocolate, two pieces of chocolate, three pieces of chocolate. After the 10th piece of chocolate, it's self-limiting. And probably for the salaried people in this company, it was probably the same thing for those bonuses they were getting, because they're all pretty much getting nice bonuses, but all pretty much the same because there wasn't a lot of change taking place. On the other hand, if you look at the left side in terms of losses, if you continue having bad feelings, well, first of all, if you look at the curve goes down a lot faster. In other words, we respond a lot more to negative, bad news than we do to good news. But if you continue going down that curve, well, in the end, I guess you're dead, right? So emotions are things that happen in a very, very different way than we originally thought. But to make things even a little more complicated is, well, if we want to go from really what counts for people, which is really meaning, okay? It's not just being happy, but unhappy, but meaningfulness. You have to bring in another element. On the one hand, over here, you've got sort of the cognitive side of a person. In other words, that's your identity. It's your knowledge, it's your values, it's your beliefs, okay? But one of the things that the brain does in addition is it looks forward relentlessly. You're not really aware of it most of the time, but your brain is really your prefrontal cortex here that has a big role here. It keeps on from everything that, like where am I going to step next, to what are my future long-term goals. It's doing that continuously. Now, once you have that, you have your idea of your possible goals. But studies have shown, for instance, that if there's a disconnect, people that are disconnected between their thinking part of their brain and their feeling part of their brain, and that's really sort of the hormones, okay, the dopamine, the endorphins, et cetera, that really affect how that sort of surge, that buzz, et cetera. that people can map out all the different types of options that they have, but they can't choose. In other words, they sort of float between all of these different options. Now, as this slide shows, it's a little bit more complex, but in terms of the system, in terms of sort of the structure of meaning, which is a very dynamic process, but fundamentally what you have is you have these possible goals. It could be my stepping here, it could be what I want to do tomorrow or what I want to be doing in 6 months. And then you get that surge, and how big that surge is determines how meaningful it is to you, how important it is to you. And that stimulates choice and goal striving, validates and strengthens your cognitive systems, who you are, your knowledge, what you think is true, what your beliefs are, etc. And eventually you grow. So as we move from the knowledge economy to the meaning economy, where people really want to be able to have purpose in their lives, and we have a tendency to think about meaning as being really tied to our individual identity. What's important in terms of growth is that it's identity neutral. And we're in a very diversified world. We have a lot of diversified people, and we can't really sort of tailor the way we provide meaning to our employees. And so growth is a really important lever to create meaningfulness for people. And if you don't create that meaningfulness to people inside the company, they'll go and find it someplace else. Because the drive for meaning is hardwired in our minds. Thank you very much.